I started playing piano when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and ever since I was a kid, I just would just hum things and make little tunes up. There are early recordings of me making things up for sure. I remember singing "Away in the Manger" at the church choir. That was my first solo. I think I was 5. I'd have to ask my parents exactly how old I was, but yeah, my family's pretty musical. My my uncle Brainerd, or rather, he's my cousin, but he's my uncle as well. So he's the conductor of Nathaniel Jack Chorale, and um, my cousins played on the last 2 records, like the rhythm section, Barry and Jean on the Ridge, and then now Beyond the Reservoir. And a lot of my cousins all sang in the choir, and it's just been a musical endeavor from the very beginning. My dad's a piano player too. He's great. He's really good. Very
So you,
gifted.
so you started on piano. How did you gravitate towards guitar and then singing?
Well, I was always singing, um, and I could always sing while playing the piano as well. But once I got a little bit older, and I went to overnight camp and things like that, and parties and stuff like that, I just really felt the need to pick up the acoustic guitar. I was listening to um, music like my mom gave me a Jim Crochet tape. I remember that vividly. As well as Cat Stevens, James Taylor, Paul Simon and Simon and Garfunkel, uh, Odetta, Odetta, Richie Havens. These folk singers sort of really piqued my interest, and I thought that I could try that too, and that's what I did.
Can we acknowledge how amazing your mom's choice of music is? I mean, those are all-time great singer-songwriters you just
Oh,
named.
for sure. I mean, we had a lot of music in the house. Nat King Cole was my dad's favorite singer, and he's an incredible piano player as well. My grandfather listened to lots of blues records and jazz records, and you know, um, my mom listened to mostly. My mom was mostly Motown and Stax, and then singer-songwriters. Like she would listen to Willie Dunn, but she'd also listen to the Supremes and the Ronettes and things like that. Marvin
So
Gaye.
so from an early age, you were already playing music, but was there anything that you wanted to be when you grew up before wanting to be a musician, or has it always from the start you knew?
No, at one point I wanted to be a fireman.
All right.
Yeah, I must have been about 5 around that time. And I used to wear all sorts of hats. Hats were my thing. They still kind of are, but I used to have a fireman's hat that I wore all the time. And what else? I wanted to be a writer. I had attended university for English literature, and I was thinking of going into journalism, and then Stagger Crossing got signed. And the nice thing is that I think that by being a musician and by being a songwriter, I got to be a writer too. So, yeah.
Have you ever considered still writing a book? I mean, I'm sure you have tons of stories from the last few decades in the music industry.
I've been asked. I've been asked to write a book by a few people, and I've been asked to write a children's book as well. At the moment, I'm not ready to write a novel, like a nonfiction novel. Maybe I could write a fiction novel. Who knows? Because that might be fun to like escape my life sometimes. But I've certainly definitely considered this children's book. I need to get out of the weeds with the release of the new record and stuff like that. But yeah.
I think a children's book is probably a good start because a standard book can take 2 to 3 years to write. And
Oh
right
yeah.
now, with you and your music career, that would be the priority, right? To keep putting out these great albums.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Hopefully they're great.
That's the goal, anyways.
Yeah.
If you and I were friends at 16 years old and you invited me over to your place to listen to some music, what albums would you be spinning for me?
Um, Definitely Midnight Marauders by Tribe Called Quest would have definitely been there. Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee is my favorite record. They're self-titled. I probably would have introduced you to that. I still do introduce people to that. Um, Miles Davis in a Silent Way. I just think it's super brilliant and cool. And we probably would have smoked a doobie. So that would have been one of the records that we would have checked out for sure. What else? Those three for sure. they don't seem they're always in my collection, and they're always records I dig. I mean, now I listen to In a Silent Way and I do yoga. So things have changed a little bit.
Yeah, you're a different man. Kids tend to change things a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah.
So from say 16 years old, when people normally go out and get a job, up until the time where you had success with Staggered Crossing, what were all the jobs that you had, and were there any like standout atrocious jobs that our listeners will find amusing to know that it wasn't just all roses for you all the way, you know?
Well, no, I've been a busboy many times. I've been a bartender many a times. I worked at a Starbucks as a barista, which I didn't love, and it ruined coffee for me. I don't like coffee. Um, what else? The one job that sticks out as a memory is because it was this. I was doing this job. And it was the day that September 11th, and I remember the job and the day so vividly because of what happened. But I remember I used to actually deliver. I'd get up in the morning really early and deliver meals to daycares. That was one of my gigs, and I remember delivering them to the daycares on that day and listening to the radio and everything being canceled.
Yeah, I remember being in science class when September 11 everything went down.
And everything canceled. Everybody stopped, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, where were you when the world stopped turning, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one job I remember. Sure.
And how early on did you know that you had a gift as a musician, that people might be interested in seeing you or maybe listening to your music, and that this is something you would actually could pursue as a career?
Well, I never really thought that I could pursue it. I just thought that I might as well give it a try. I still think that you know my musical theory isn't as strong as I'd like it to be. I still have time, obviously, and when it comes to lyrics and things like that, I think that I've gotten a little bit better at it over time as well. But I guess, around 18 years old, just sitting around and playing by campfires and things like that, and making up my first couple of songs. When I started making up my first couple of songs, classmates and family members and everybody would say, "Oh, wow, that's not bad. You should keep doing that." And so I did. But I never really thought, that I would end up sustaining a career out of my talent. I always thought that I'd sustain a career out of my drive. And fortunately, I had a little bit of both, and they've complemented each other well.
So as a guitarist and a singer, who were your musical heroes growing up? We all have kind of the guitar gods that we look to when we're young. And then do you have different musical heroes now that you're older?
Like just who play guitar?
Yeah, I mean, just who inspired you when you were, learning to play the guitar and the piano and singing? Like for me, you look at the guitar gods like, Jimmy Page or whoever.
Right. I was never really into like those guys. I liked the music. I liked Led Zeppelin, but I was never really trying to emulate or become anything like them at all. Neil Young was a huge influence from an acoustic guitar standpoint, for sure. And that translated into the electric guitar. When I started playing the electric guitar, I think that I gravitated to Robbie Robertson and his way of playing. And then I guess what ended up happening was, Staggered Crossing did have some moments where we got a little harder and turned things up. And I think that the grunge movement did have a lot to do with that. Even though
the early 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I was more of a hip hop fan than I was an early grunge fan. But like the first couple of big records that came out, that like the Nevermind, 10, and Bad Motorfinger, I didn't get it. I wasn't a huge fan. I did the second Nirvana record. I totally got that. When All Apologies came out, I got that, and I finally became a Nirvana fan when the Unplugged thing came out as well, and then backtracked. And Versus, which was the second Pearl Jam record, was more appealing to me than the first as well.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. And so you mentioned you started by being a fan of hip hop. Is there any chance that you ever do anything in hip hop?
I've guested on some things. Yeah, I've never done any MCing, but I've guested as a melodic voice on a few tracks. I did something with a cat named Fat Owl. Um, I've done something with David Strickland. Um, there may be one or two others that I've done, but I can't remember.
So you'd never consider putting out a legit hip hop album?
You never know, man.
Yeah, never say never, I
It'll
guess.
probably stink to the high heavens, but
Musicians a lot of times are when we're growing up, we're told, get that good education, get a normal job. There's that pressure that, a career in the music industry is that's a hobby, that's a dream, that's not realistic. Did you ever have that kind of that outside resistance? And if so, how did you kind of get past that?
sure. Every parent's going to tell their kids to have a backup plan if they're good parents. Also, if they're good parents, they will support you in what you're really wanting to do. And so my folks did, and so did my extended family as well, and my friends have all been very supportive. So um, there's been really hard years for sure. I certainly was disenchanted with the music industry and performing for a long time, and that's when I just didn't. From about, I don't know, for about 4 years or 5 years, and ended up just bartending and doing that until finally I decided that it was time to return to it. I'm glad I did. Um, but things, you put out records and you hope for the best. And I've been rather fortunate, and I'm extremely honored and grateful and humbled by the response to these records that I put out. But am I, a millionaire? No, but I have great people who support me. So in that way, I would say, yeah, maybe I am.
I guess the backup plan is you can always be a fireman if you need to.
I've got to cut this first. Don't
Is
get,
that a rule? I guess that would
yeah,
catch flames pretty quick, or what?
I think so. I think we'd have to figure something out about my hair.
The flames might get worse if you get in the building as a fireman with your
That's what
hair.
I'm saying. I don't know what to do. I can't try to keep it up in some way, shape, or form. There we go.
There you go. We'll make it work. I reached out and got a little support for this podcast. So we have a few surprises here for you. And here's surprise number one. So I have a few kind words from our mutual friend, Casey Roberts. So he was the special guest on episode number 54 of the podcast. And
Cool.
what's awesome about him, besides him being just like a world-class musician, is the top 10 podcasts that I've ever done as far as popularity for downloads. All of the top 10 are signed artists that are gold, platinum, or multi-platinum, except Casey Roberts is in there. That's how big his fan base is. So I was very pleasantly surprised, and it blew me away the amount of love and support that guy has, which is cool. So here are some words from Casey Roberts. It's a long quote, so just hang tight. Here we go. So Casey says, I met Julian when I was 14 on a bus home from North Toronto High School, the 61A Avenue Road North bus, just to be specific in case you think he's lying. He says, Julian was a couple years older than me, and he had the kind of outward spirit that transcends the monotony of daily situations, like a tired and jam-packed bus ride home from school. He would say hello and joke around with people he didn't know on the bus, like myself, and had a positive energy that made you want to know him. One of my close friends in high school, Jocelyn Black, was the sister of the bass player in his band Staggered Crossing. I watched as they lit their rock and roll fire across the country. Now I frequently enjoy listening to his beautiful solo music. Julian has always been an inspiring and influential artist and musician to people like myself. He is a prolific, ever-evolving, storytelling songwriter who carries the torch of rock and roll, folk, and real heartfelt music. Also, he's a really nice person. And maybe that's the final ingredient that makes his music so special. From Casey Roberts.
That's very sweet. Thank you, Casey. I do remember the bus, the 61A. I know it.
That's a famous bus. That's history in the making right there.